I do a lot of sharing about money, partly because I coach people. I don't know, it's the thing that I'm working through, and that's what feels authentic to me at this time. But there was a long time in business where I wouldn't have shared any of this stuff, not as publicly as I do, because it's that whole, oh, she's having trouble with money, how can I trust her with my services and things like that. It's just interesting how there was just this sort of clarity among people, and we weren't trying to fix things or anything for each other, but it was just like, oh, you go through that too. I'm Tiffany Gilliland, your host of the Business Bravery podcast. I'm an Australian business and mindset coach and marketing service provider with 13 years of experience in online marketing. I help coaches sign clients and grow their business with more confidence and less stress using my Business Bravery framework. It's all about simple steps that actually work so you can build a profitable business that lights you up and feels sustainable. Before we dive in, I want to invite you to join me for Brave Coffee Connections, my free monthly Zoom gathering for coaches and service-based business owners. It's not another networking pitch fest. Instead, you'll connect through powerful questions, small group conversations, and a short visualization to set you up for the month ahead. These deeper connections often lead to collaborations, referrals, and even new clients. Find out more about this free monthly Zoom gathering at tiffanygstudios.com/connections. That's tiffanygstudios.com/connections. I'd love to see you there. Hello, everybody. I am super excited to be talking to you all today about money, worth, and dropping the mask. And specifically in terms of looking at what came up in December's Brave Coffee Connections, where we were talking about money and worth, and sort of just more of a reflective thing of, okay, here's some things that came up, some things that were said, and I'm not naming names or anything, of course. This is just, oh, here's some things that came up that might just resonate with other coaches and service providers out in the world, and just to sort of know that we're kind of all on the same page, and then what steps we can maybe take to perhaps change some of these things around the way we're charging, how much money is coming in, the way we're running our businesses, and even like how this impacts our mindset and our nervous systems and stress and all of that kind of thing. So, hang on, I just need to hit my timer because I am on a mission this year to make my episodes shorter. So I have a 25-minute timer, and I know it'll be longer once I add on the intro, and if I put ads in, I'm not sure if I'll do that this time or not. But yeah, anyway, here we go. So first up, I just want to talk about the like Brave Coffee Connections and the room. I'm not promoting it. I'm just talking about, like we had 2 sessions that were run. We had a number of people in both, and we had some very interesting perspectives. And this all happened in early December, going into that end of year, for some people Christmas break, other people just holiday break, however you want to see it. And yeah, it was really interesting that the things that came up around money and maybe like the masks that we have. And I shared some of my stories that had been going on with money, specifically my stories to kind of get people in the mood. And what I shared was about, one, just how my self-esteem and my self-worth had been driving things with money and how I charge in my business. So I don't know if anybody else has ever been in the situation, like whether you're a coach or a service provider, where it's been a while since you've signed a client and you're talking to someone and you just feel like, oh man, like my usual rate is here, but I'll just put it down at this, I'll just lower it because I want to make sure that I get the sale so that I feel good, so that I can say I have clients and that my business is successful. Oh, I have been there more than once. I know I do a lot of talking about money on this podcast, especially my solo episodes, because it's just the thing that I am working on the most. And like, let's be real, if you have a business and you don't have enough money coming in to cover expenses, and you're going to have times where that's going to be a thing because you've invested in something and it's a planned thing, or you're at the beginning of your business and so your expenses are going to be higher than your income. But if that continues for too long, then it's hard to have a profitable business and stay in business unless you have like endless savings or things coming that way. So, like, what's going on with the money is an important thing. So, yeah, that was one of the things that I shared just about money. And then another thing that I shared was that not all income is equal. So, I have I had a situation where I had a long-term client and like we'd been working together for years, like 6 years or something like that, and she'd just been like always this ongoing stuff, both coaching and services. And yeah, I realized that her way of working wasn't necessarily aligned with how I wanted to continue running my business. And this is absolutely no offense to her or anything like that. Just her way of working was everything was at the last minute. There was no planning ahead. And, like she needed someone who could come in and solve things, fix things, and get everything happening. And it was all kind of the last minute. And, when I first started my business, I was really happy to do that. Like, this comes back to the money stuff that I had been talking about in previous episodes where I went through like my first memories of money and that kind of stuff. And yeah, I just found that whole thing of, being the person who's happy to do the horrible jobs that nobody else wants for money. That was part of my identity without even realizing it. And so that felt fulfilling at first. And then now I've done some work through that, and it's like, oh, actually, I don't. I could get people more into my packages for social media and for like Facebook ads and for doing sort of my three service packages that's outside of my coaching. And I could, yeah, like just have an easier way of working, just more peace, more, hey, like things are on a timeline. I know when I'm doing what. There's none of this last minute fix it energy and stuff like that, which, it's great for some people. They love that. Just for me, I just wanted to try something different. That's all to say, like, just not all income is equal. And like looking at the impacts on the nervous system and your mindset and stress and that kind of thing. And as you move into different phases of life, you might not be up for, certain ways of working. So, yeah, you don't necessarily have to say yes. And it's not a bad thing. It's just a, hey, this is now a job I think that's better suited for somebody else who's happy to do that. And that took some definite bravery, let me tell you, because it's hard to say no to someone you've worked with for years, especially in like a service-based business, and that whole feeling of like, hey, I've always got this client and she's always going to be there. And yeah, just, I don't know, there was a lot to work through. So that was my stories that I shared. And then it was just interesting about like what came up when we did the prompts in Brave Coffee Connections and what other people shared. And I'm super excited to share sort of how this open conversation sort of happened and just and the reflections and like changes that we might want to make and that kind of thing. So it's just really interesting when we're kind of like all honest about money and the masks drop. I mean, like, it's so easy. I mean, I do a lot of sharing about money partly because like I coach people and I don't know, it's the thing that I'm working through and that's what feels authentic to me at this time. But there was a long time in business where I wouldn't have shared any of this stuff, like not as publicly as I do because it's that whole, oh, she's having trouble with money, how can I trust her with my services and things like that, which hasn't been the case, I'm grateful to say, so far as I know. I mean, I'm sure anybody that was turned off by it, they didn't hire me, so I don't know. Nobody's been like, I can't believe you shared that. But yeah, like it's just interesting how there was just this sort of clarity among people, and we weren't trying to fix things or anything for each other, but it was just like, oh, you go through that too. Yeah, I see that too. And, the like that truth comes out and it just like creates relief, which I don't know, like it's just, and I hope that this episode does something of that for people listening as well. So, some of the the shifts that I saw, and actually, sorry, I'm going to go into my notes here a little. Sorry, because I have some I had some brief notes, but just don't remember some of the finer points. But there's, you know, some things that people were saying was, here we go. So the one was the letting go of overworking for money. And that wasn't just me, that was coming up from other people around. So, looking at where that belief comes from and, you know, and like just how it can sneak back in, because it's definitely something I've been working on for years, and why letting it go just feels like unsettling and relieving, right? So that was definitely one of the things that came up. Another one was, oh, a couple of people talked about, like, being done with undercharging and discounting, right? So yeah, it's definitely a thing. And like even part of that of like, oh, I'd love to raise my rates. Something that came up was like, oh, the idea of raising my rates is scary because are my systems like set up for me to raise my rates higher and, make sure that it's a smooth process, the onboarding, the offboarding, which is processes that we go through for both coaching and services, right? And yeah, it's just sort of interesting, those things that came up and that we kind of was like, oh, yep, I feel that and I've been there and that kind of thing. And yeah, anyway. So yeah, that was interesting. And then the other thing that came up, which I found was interesting, was, like for somebody who is in the earlier stages of their business, we kind of have people in the early stages, people who are a bit further along in that messy middle. And even though I think I've been doing online marketing since 2011 and running my business since 2017, about, yeah, I still feel like I'm in that messy middle, even the early stages, because I've been part time in my business for so long. Yeah, but something that I thought was interesting was just that trusting that people will pay me for my services. And that comes into the people wanting to raise their prices as well, too. Trusting that people will pay. Sort of that whole I want to say self confidence, but it's also just like this self trust. That's what I want. Self trust. That trusting yourself that you can solve problems and that people will pay you for solving those problems, whether it's coaching or services. We're both solving problems, going about it in slightly different ways. The other thing that came up was raising prices as a reflection of depth and care. It was less of, oh, I should charge more because I should, I've been in business for X number of years, I've been doing this, that kind of thing, as opposed to actually, you know what, and this came out of a reflection from someone, and she said that actually if I did charge more, that actually reflects how much effort I put in to the coaching container in this situation, but services can be equally the same. And it's just like, charging in a way like that would actually honor how much I put in, and I would stop feeling resentment. Oh yeah, that's definitely something to look out for if you're starting to feel like resentment for the prices that you're paying, like that people are paying you versus like how much effort you're putting in and that kind of thing. Then it's definitely a sign to raise those prices for sure. So, and the last thing that kind of came up was choosing inner worth over external validation, right? So I mentioned earlier about how I used to discount my prices so that I could sign a client because it had been a while and I just, wanted to feel good. And then, the next people I'd talk to, my price would inch back up to where I wanted it to be. Not a great way to run a business. Certainly not from a like profit and income and looking at all the bank statements that way. But, that's where I was at the time. That's who I was. And, like I need to be grateful for that. It got me here. But yeah, the inner worth over external validation. So the whole, it's okay if somebody says no, and it's okay if a few people say no in a row because, we're finding the right people and that's part of the process, right? And even on the side of like the over delivery, the people pleasing side, that was another reason why I used to discount my prices sometimes for people. Like I just, that people pleaser side, which, I've been working on now for a good number of years in various capacities. And also the whole like waiting for permission to be able to like increase your prices or change up your business or run your business in a certain way. So, yeah, this is kind of all about running our businesses in using business bravery and that kind of thing, and just being brave enough to trust ourselves, trust our inner worth, and be less reliant on external validation of, okay, yes, now's the time, this is what I should be doing, and that kind of stuff. Quick break to tell you about Brave Coffee Connections, my free monthly Zoom for coaches and service-based business owners. In just 60 minutes, you'll reflect on brave questions, connect in small groups, and finish with a visualization to set you up for success. It's not networking as usual, no awkward pitches, just real conversations that often lead to collaborations, referrals, and clients. Grab your free spot now at tiffanyGstudios.com/connections. That's TIFFANY for golf, studios.com/connections. I can't wait to see you there. For a couple of people, like they outwardly talked about all the anxiety that came up. And, you might be thinking about this and the idea of change or doing something differently, that like anxiety could be coming up, right? And that is expected, okay? Change, it just doesn't feel calm at first, right? You're doing something different, and anxiety doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It just means that you're doing something new or different, and that can be the body's way of going, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. Sometimes it can be the excitement can feel like anxiety as well, of like, oh, I'm finally doing this new thing, right? And some of the things I've talked about in previous episodes, doing some calm breathing, visualizing yourself, your future self, even like journaling out, hey, it's Friday the such and such, or it's the 31st, and that kind of stuff can absolutely help the body to feel safe and feel like it's already happened, so it doesn't need to worry and self-sabotage and that kind of thing, right? And that's part of why in the Brave Coffee Connections calls we actually finish with that visualization, so that like one, you leave feeling really good, right, nice and calm and all of that goodness and at peace, but also so that you can see that it's already happened and your body doesn't need to fight against it. Okay, so let's maybe move from reflection and what everybody's been talking about and move into more taking action, right? If money has felt heavy or loaded for you, here are like a few brave but gentle places to start, okay? So first you can notice where you're still overgiving, and like that this might not be your thing, so if it's not, you can skip this part, but if it is you, then don't feel like you have to stop straight away. Just like being aware is the first step to change, and then trusting yourself and trusting that your body, and you will start to take actions. Like this is how it worked for me actually, of being more aware of it. I had a coach who actually was like, oh, you're doing all of that she was giving me feedback on my coaching programs at the time. She's like, oh, you're doing all that, that's so much, here's what I do. And it's like, oh, the possibilities of, oh, I can actually do less. And like she was charging more than me and doing like a third of the work that I was doing. She had different types of clients, and I was, based on like what I told you, I was attracting people who, like, so I could come in as, oh, I do the hard jobs, I fix the hard stuff, and I attracted people who wanted that from me, and so they needed more support and things like that too. So there's some things going on there, but just noticing where you're still overgiving, and even just like writing it down and being, okay, all right, we can make some changes here, right? The second thing you can do is to just like loosen or relax one belief, like not necessarily eliminate it, but look at, okay, so what are the beliefs behind the overgiving or the undercharging, or well, like whatever it is that you might want to work on around money. And if one of your things is like, oh, the overwhelm about money and like looking at the bank statements and things like that, I have some other episodes, check in the show notes. I will link to them where I talked about how I sort of broke through some of that and yeah, just some of the steps that I went through. So those could be really useful. However, yeah, just look at the beliefs like, what thoughts are driving this or, what ideas from childhood are driving this could be another one, like about money. Oh, okay, why do I need to overgive? Why do I need to undercharge? Why am I in this cycle, right? And doing it like approaching it from curiosity, not shame. And then just okay, re reframing that and moving in a way where okay, how could we relax that a bit? So let's give an example of like okay, I have to work hard to earn money. Like if I don't work hard, I won't earn enough. That if statements are hard to if you have an if statement, you need to work it into just like a sort of simple statement. But it's like I have to work hard to earn money, and then oh, then I kind of like to challenge it and be like, oh, what if I just did an experiment? Like, what if I just worked like 80% less harder? And then it's like, oh, what could I choose that is a little less than that? So I've been on this road myself, you guys, you know that. For me, like my goal is to be working 10-ish hours a week, maybe 15, because I have, an aging parent who I care for, chronic health issues, things like that. Yeah, just the idea of being able to work less hours and build a business that does its own thing, that kind of thing. Yeah, it just, yeah, something that appeals, right? And then I have time to do other things, hobbies, fulfilling things, whatever. And even as I say that, see how I'm like over explaining about how like I just want to work 10 hours a week. Like there's plenty of people who are like, yeah, I just want to work 10 hours a week, or the ultimate dream of just being on a beach and doing very little. Right. And some people have businesses that run like that because, they have managers and things like that. Anyway, so there's nothing wrong with wanting to do less, but still I have some work to do, right? But this is kind of how I've moved through it in sort of a real way, right? One, finding examples of people who are doing less hours and earning more money. And it's like I've watched YouTube videos of people who like, oh, I run what is it, 4 or 5 gyms, like real world gyms and things like that. And, she works like 4 hours a week or something like that, basically checking in with her managers, checking on numbers, and that's it. And she makes multi six figures a year from that. And so, do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, okay, there's an example, and then finding some online examples. And then it's like, okay, so what if I did 20% less? What could that look like? And just being curious and having fun with it, right? And then it's like, oh, okay. Then you're sort of giving your brain some information and some evidence that it's like, oh, okay, we can do less. Or if it's charging higher prices, then it's like, okay, what is it? I like to like try out a thing where it's like, okay, let's jump 10 times the amount that I want. Okay. And then just like see how your body feels. And it's like getting your body to feel better. And then it's like coming back down from that. Like you see how your body feels when it's like, oh, I'm going to 10x my prices. And I just did an interview with Olga, which will be out in a couple of weeks after this, you hear this. And should be episode 101. And yeah, she was saying, I'm going to 10x my business this year. And like, it's so exciting to hear that from someone, but it's like, it can feel very different in your own body when you're like, yes, I'm going to earn 10 times the income and build a business to do that. And it's like, sometimes that's what we have to do because like just going, oh, I just want to earn 10 or 20% more. It's not enough change. It doesn't move the needle enough. So it's like, you really want to break out and really get through that plateau. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. So anyway, that's one way to look at things. The next one is to kind of just like know it inside yourself and just be like, hey, you know what? Like I'm on this path, I'm making change, right? It doesn't have to be visible, like it's okay if nobody claps, right? It's just, even being aware and just being like, okay, I'm just gonna sit with this for a month. I know I'm doing this, don't have to make huge change. Coming back to connection, right? I've heard from some people from like after they've done Brave Coffee Connections, they're like, oh, somebody said, I love how the sessions make everyone drop the mask of I'm doing okay, I'm on top of everything. Like a lot of networking calls, and like my calls are hybrid between networking and sort of self-reflection coaching sort of thing. Yeah, it's this sort of different space. And I've heard that from a couple of different people of just like, oh, people drop the mask. It's like creates that real connection, right? But from a place where everybody feels safe, they don't feel targeted or anything, and nobody really like jumps in and tries to like coach you and that kind of thing. It's just not that kind of space. And I guess like I just wanted to sort of have that in an episode like this where it's like, oh, here's what some things like people have been saying, what's come up, and that kind of thing. Because I don't know about you guys, but I just like I've been in online marketing since 2011, running my business since 2017 in various capacities, sometimes focused on services, sometimes focused on coaching, sometimes bridging both, which is what I'm doing again now. Although I don't know if I'm really doing any coaching right now. I'm sort of focused on building the services to keep the regular money coming in so then I can focus more on the coaching again. But yeah, it's just like having those real connections of like, oh, people are going through this too. I'm not alone. I've had so many people say that to me. And, having like we always do these breakout groups and like you're out like talking, it can just be two people, can be, four, maximum of four is kind of what I try and do. And yeah, it's just I don't know, like it just always makes me feel better for the month, and just it's a bit like I find it easier than doing like this kind of raw, I don't know, cold DM sometimes where it's like, oh, hey, I saw your post, and like granted the people who have come to these are the people who we've managed to have real conversations in the DMs even when we didn't know each other, and it's built. And like that can be harder to find. And so that's just what I love creating and having that support and that kind of thing. And then I'm seeing the people we've been running these since September now, and I'm seeing people they're like, oh, I'm running my masterclass. One of the other group members, she just released her first like low ticket offer that she'd been dreaming about for I think 18 months or something. And yeah, just like more of that's going on. Like I said, Olga, who we're doing an episode because, sorry, we recorded it last night or night before last. And so it's fresh on my mind. But she's, 10xing her business and hiring people. She has service based business. And I think she does a little coaching as well. And yeah, just how like even she's someone who I met through Brave Coffee Connections and then, gets to be on the podcast and that kind of thing. And yeah, just having that support. And so I guess I just want to say, one, come along to Brave Coffee Connections if you're vibing with this very different way that I'm doing a podcast episode. And if these reflections are interesting, we don't talk about money every time. It's a different theme, topic each month. I'm recording this in January. We're about to do visibility and courage, and there's other stuff that's going to be like on boundaries and all of these things, and it all sort of helps people to reflect and take actions, which is awesome. But if that's not your thing, then like finding your own group of like real connections is definitely a place to start, like finding your accountability partners who you can kind of be real with and oh, like I'm struggling a little bit here and things like that. Like definitely helps so much with business because this can be quite lonely otherwise. If you listened to this episode, thank you so much. Come along over to like Instagram and just DM me. I'd love to hear that you heard something, that you're thinking about something. You don't have to get too vulnerable if you're not ready or anything, but I'd just love to know that people are hearing this. And I just want to sort of finish up and say, wherever you're up to with this, you're in the place that you need to be at the time that you need to be at, right? Like this is part of your journey. You don't have to be doing better. Don't have to be feeling bad about how badly you're doing or anything like that. You're just like you're in a place. You're making progress. You're taking one step at a time, and just remember that. Thank you so much for listening today. That's it from me. Bye for now. Thanks for listening today. If you're ready to grow through deeper connections, join me for Brave Coffee Connections. It's my free monthly Zoom call for coaches and service providers. No pitches, just real conversations that spark collaborations, referrals, and new clients. Plus, you'll leave with clarity, inspiration, and one brave action for the month ahead. Save your free spot at tiffanyGstudios.com/connections. That's TIFFANYG for golf, STUDIOS.com/connections. I can't wait to see you there.